to the Foresight podcast, the nexus of ideas that shape our digital future. I am Diana Daniels, Mexican entrepreneur working in telecommunications, financial, labor, and digital inclusion. And as your host today, we'll be diving into the pulse of the telecom industry. In this episode, we have the privilege of hosting a distinguished figure in the world of the telecommunications. He is José Otero, who serves as the Vice President for Latin America and the Caribbean at 5G Americas, where he plays a pivotal role in shaping the future of telecom in one of the most dynamic regions of the world. With a career spanning over 2 decades, José has not only witnessed but also contributed to the transformative evolution of telecom. His extensive research has influenced public policy and the adoption of new wireless technologies across all Latin America and the Caribbean. His insights have been instrumental in navigating the complex terrain of technological advancement in the regulatory landscapes. José will talk to us today about how emerging technologies like 5G and others are reshaping connectivity and communication and what this means for the business and consumers alike. Thank you, José, for being with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Diana. It's a privilege to be here and also to see you after so many years.
I know, it's amazing. You know, time flies, and today we are in 2024. 2023 was a year of high hopes for the 5G technology, particularly in the regions like Latin America and the Caribbean. The anticipation was palpable with promises of groundbreaking connectivity, speeds revolutionary applications in sectors like healthcare, education, or transformation in everyday internet use. However, the reality has been somewhat underwhelming. The expected widespread of the adoption and transformative impact of the 5G, I believe that it faced various hurdles from infrastructural challenges to the regulatory issues. For instance, the seamless integration of 5G into the existing networks didn't really occur as smoothly as it was anticipated, and the revolutionary changes in that user experience were not as pronounced as many years. I believe that it kind of fell flat. But considering your expertise, I would love to ask you, José, how do you view the evolution of the telecom industry in Latin America and the Caribbean in the wake of these challenges, facing this extensive research and experience that you have? Can you share with us those insights on how the initial expectations of 5G have shaped or perhaps reshaped public policy and wireless technology? What was the development in the region? What is your take?
Well, it all depends from the perspective that you want to look at it. If we are looking at it in terms of what has been promised and what happens in reality, it's more of the same. There's nothing new. What we have seen in terms of promises for 5G, we saw it in the past with 4G. We saw it over 20 years ago with 3G. There's always that hype, that's overselling of the technology, and when the technology arrives, we are like waiting for more. Wasn't it supposed to deliver more? And this is a problem in terms of controlling expectations. We haven't been able to control expectation in the region with the arrival of a new mobile technology. A new mobile technology arrives every 10 years. And it have a lifespan of 20 years. So on year one, if you have an incipient adoption, those early adopters, those high-end consumers in the region, that's 3 to 5% of the general population get into that technology. Year 10 is when you have that massive adoption, when you finally get to that 30, 40, 50, 60% of the population using that technology. On year 20 is when you start deciding if I'm going to disconnect that technology. Right now, we are in that year 10, 11, 12 for 4G. Right now, the technology that is growing and is becoming massive in Latin America is 4G, not 5G. And also, the technology that is being disconnected is 3G. And due to all the devices that are being connected, the 2G is going to be disconnected later on. Let's remember also that economics, poverty, demographics, topography, urban density are different factors that impact the adoption of the new technology. That's one perspective. The other thing that we need to understand is the arrival of 5G doesn't mean that all the technical aspects that are in that umbrella that is called IMT 2020 arrive with the first network.
Hmm.
Is an evolutionary process. It goes in different phases. For example, 4G, when it arrived and the first launch took place in November of 2009 in the Nordic countries, you have throughput peaks of 12 to 20 megabit per second. And that was the phase or release 8. When you have the final release or phase of 4G, is the 14, and it can give you speeds of up to 1 gigabit per second. There's a whole evolutionary process that was taking place every 12 to 18 months. So when we're looking into 5G, the early stages, you are not going to see that much different with what you have in 4G.
Hmm.
But most of the benefits are not on the user consumer side, are in the corporate industrial side. So although consumers are going to say, well, I have 5G, but for you a faster or 5G, what is the big thing about it? Because you are not noticing it, because 5G is the first mobile technology that was not addressed and had as its ultimate and main target the consumer. Is the
Hmm.
enterprise sector, is the corporate sector. So we are looking into a technology that is going to benefit the consumer indirectly. That's why when you look into 5G, people are saying, but I was supposed to get A, B, and C. You're going to get A, B, and C, but remember, you need to wait. 3G was launched in 2001 in Europe and Japan, and it took 5 years to arrive to Latin America.
But
And we
as I
are in
said,
2000.
yeah, all these technologies, that we are seeing today, they've been, as you said, like getting in there. Although if we see other areas such as AI, it has advanced so quickly that makes you wonder, is telecom picking up the pace on the technologies that are shaping the industry as fast as others? Or what do you think? I mean, you as someone that has authored numerous studies in this landscape in the regional telecommunications, what do you think that these key technological advances, that you can see them as being pivotal for the next 5 years in the telecom in Latin America and the Caribbean?
Well, I think I will not say that any technology advance will be pivotal in Latin America. I think what is more important in the region is have uh, decision makers that are aware and knowledgeable about the impact of technology in growth, uh, social services, and transparency and decreasing cost. If you don't have decision makers that are aware of how technology can benefit them in their policy goals, whatever technology we have in the region is going to be completely useless because no one is going to uh, use it to achieve their goals. You just mentioned AI. I can
Yeah,
tell you that AI is one of the most spread around technologies in the region. Why? Because you have over 500 million people in Latin America with this
yeah.
smartphone. You have over 500 million people in Latin America with an AI embedded system in their hand that have access to different AI systems.
Mm-hmm.
And we are talking about generative AI systems, yes, that they can use and interact with it. They know it as Siri, they know it as Alexa, they know it as Google, whatever assistant, but they also can go through that to that Chat GPT, which is another generative AI system, but it's in text. On the meantime, you are using predictive AI system every time you do some shopping And when they're tracking you, there's machine learning that you're using. So AI is not something for the future. It's already here. The problem is 99.9% of the people in the region don't understand, are not aware that they do have an AI that is accessible to them. And the same happened with decision makers, for example. And then, as I was mentioning before, there's any new technology. This is economics 101, business 101. They have a life cycle. In the beginning, when you don't have that many devices, it's very expensive. Right now, the average price of a 5G smartphone is $200 more expensive than a 4G smartphone. That's why you
Mhm.
have this massive growth of 4G services in the region, and 5G is just starting. Then you also, we can't forget that 5G, besides not targeting the end user, 5G had two events impacting its arrival in the globe, not just Latin America, that no other mobile technology experienced before. First is the general uh, technology political debate and confrontation that ended up in the ban of the use of microchips by certain companies that were producing mobile phones. It's like the country that was producing over 70% of the mobile phones in the planet could not get chips.
Yeah.
So they, before this ban was active, they decided to buy like 300 million, 400 million microchips. So there was a huge scarcity of this microchip. What
Right.
happened? Companies like Apple, companies like Samsung decided, I don't have that many microchips. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to build low end, mid end cell phone. I'm going to put that in my high end, very expensive cell phone that give me a better margin of profit. And it also impacted other industry. For example, if you look into the car manufacturing industry in the US, you see that due to this scarcity, you have over annually roughly anywhere between 1 to 3 million vehicles that were not built because
Mhm.
you didn't have that memory that could be embedded. So that's one thing. And if it wasn't enough that we already have a very slow production of an ecosystem that will allow people with uh, lower purchasing power to acquire that 5G handset, we got a pandemic
Yeah.
that shut down all these manufacturing plants for
Mhm.
anywhere from 6 to 18 months, disrupted logistics all around the planet. So you have a bunch of networks, 5G networks, covering 60, 70% of the population with less than of 1% of your subscriber base having access to those handsets.
Yeah.
So, and those are two events that delay 5G adoption. Not only Latin America, if you look into announcement all over the globe, you're going to see in different regions that 5G is like not going as fast as needed, or as no, or as fast as other technology. Then we look into the technical side that we didn't look into in other technologies. Other technologies you were using under 3 gigahertz spectrum, and load of physics tells you the higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength. If you
Mhm.
look, with 5G, we need low bands of low frequency bands, the one that we're using from first to fourth generation. We need mid band that are higher frequency that we need millimeter wave. So people understand the difference. If you're using 700 megahertz, you can cover roughly, if you are following the law and that limit the power that you can put into that antenna, you easily can cover anywhere from 12 to 14 kilometers around that antenna.
Mhm.
To cover that same area, using 3.5, you might need anywhere from 8 to 15. So now imagine that's 3.5 gigahertz versus 700 megahertz. The frequencies that are now being assigned include 26 gigahertz, 28 gigahertz that just cover certain meters. So we have an increased density. If whereas before a country like Brazil will need only 5,000 antennas to cover 80% of the population. Now with 40,000 antennas, you might not have that 80% of the population covered. Uh, that means that you also need to quadruple the investment. It's not the same to build 5,000 antenna, 10,000 antenna than to build 40,000 antennas. So that also impact how rapidly the operators are deploying these networks because it's a huge investment that we didn't have before. And the other part is since the benefits are indirect, it's only going to the corporation first and it's only going to the enterprise sector first. In the early stages, everybody's asking, so what is the big thing about 5G? What is the big service that 5G is going to provide to me as a consumer? Where is that killer application? The killer application is that with 5G, the data transfer cost can get reduced, decreased up to 80%.
Right.
So that means that eventually these gaming companies, all these manufacturing companies, these service companies, are going to say, well, uh, is that data centric application is not as expensive as before. Is that I don't need to pay $1,000 anymore. I only pay 200. So holograms, virtual reality, AI, blockchain, analytics and the cloud become more and more affordable. And the price could continue decreasing in terms of data transfer. And then is when you are going to see those non-traditional players uh, entering the market and start offering new services. If you look into the
It will
gaming,
happen. It will
huh?
happen now in 20. Do you think it will happen now in 2024? It's fine. It
No,
was
you need to look into the next 5 years. It's like in the next 5 years, if like with 3G in Latin America, this will 2024 will be the first year of 3G and arrival after the first launch of 3G in 2001. It arrived in June. So if this was 3G, we still have no 3G. And people were not complaining.
yeah.
And what happened? And 3G have a late start, but it grew really, really fast. You know why? Because you have 5 years of that handset ecosystem being built. When 5G arrived in the region, you had companies like Antel in Uruguay competing with the Vodafones, AT&T, T-Mobile, China Mobile of this planet for handsets. Whereas one of these companies will put an order for 50 million handsets, the first order for the Uruguayan guy was 10,000. Do you think they were going to get those 10,000 handsets? Of course not. So
So most of the people looking into their phones right now, the 5G thing, it's not really 5G.
yeah, it's 5G. The thing is, you have the networks in the region right now. In Latin America, have over the first 5G network in the region arrived in April 2019. 1 month after it arrives in the US and Korea, before China, before Japan, before any 5G in Europe. But it was very, very small, its coverage, because you don't have devices. So why do you want a 5G network if you don't have the devices?
Does it make economical sense to have the devices already or not even
I'm going
yet?
to put it like this. Colombia did three two different spectrum assignment, two different spectrum auction to boost and promote 4G. June 2013, December 2019.
Mm-hmm.
By December 2020, 56% of the subscribers in Colombia didn't have a 4G phone. So, because it's not that the technology wasn't available, technology was there. It's not that the handsets were not there. The handsets were there, but how there are the other elements. How expensive are those handsets? What is the use that the individual is going to make of those handsets? And is he aware of all the different applications and services that he can do with those handsets? Like people don't know they have AI. People don't know that they can study with the handset. They don't understand many things. The people say, "I'm going to watch a little cat kittens videos on YouTube. I'm going to use it for to watch porn, or I'm going to use it for chat or gaming.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it."
yeah.
So everything else related to development, all these e-government application, e-health application, teleeducation application, are non-existent. And the best way to see proof that people don't understand and decision makers don't understand what they have in place was during the pandemic. There was only one country in the Americas that didn't shut down school systems for even a day during the pandemic, and that was Uruguay because they have it's one of the few places where one laptop per child work
Right.
with Plan Save. So all the kids have their tiny green laptop tablet and could connect and have all the software and can continue and they could continue studying. Everything else, it collapsed. You
You,
didn't
you,
have
you mentioned you
government application, people using government application during the pandemic because uh, people didn't know they existed.
right.
People were not using e-health application because people didn't know existed. A great effort during the pandemic was, and you saw that in Europe as well, is like the government telling users, hey, we have this mobile application. You turn on the TV and during the soccer game, and you see Barcelona beating Real Madrid, and what you see is the announcement about all this mobile application that could make your life easier because otherwise,
So Jose, I really would love to know three things right now. It's because of all this amazing information you're giving to us. Is one of them is you're being telling us, regulators and even executive for Latin American telecommunications companies, they don't understand what are the skills that they need to have in order to succeed in the next 5 years. Today is 2024. In 5 years, we'll be in the bridge of 2030. What skills do they need to have, these telecom regulators and leaders, executive, in order to succeed in 2030? And I have another two important questions for you. So, but let's want to start with these two.
yeah, the thing is that it's not an easy answer because I could say that, well, you need people that have experience and knowledge to be named as part of the regulator. Like, for example, in Colombia, you need one engineer, you need one lawyer, and one economist as part of the regulator by law. In Mexico, you need people to take an exam to prove that have component from economics, law, and engineering, and you see that. However, we have in Latin America, including the Caribbean, over 40 markets.
Right.
Less than 10 countries have these type of requirements. Most of the regulators are political appointments.
Mm-hmm.
So But the thing is, oh, so let's require that they are knowledgeable, have experience, and that we can test them. They are taking exams, so we understand that we are putting the best of the best that want the job. No. Most of these regulators are directly or indirectly linked with the legislative or the executive power.
Hmm.
And if the executive power decides that they don't like how the regulator is playing, they can use different ways to interfere with it. The best case is case of Mexico.
Right.
Mexico has 7 commissioners in their independent regulator, the Federal Institute of Telecommunications. The president of Mexico tried to control it. The regulator fought back. The Supreme Court side with the regulator because it's a constitutional mandate that they are completely independent. But guess what? Uh, Commissioners were retiring, and the president decided not to send
Renew.
to the Senate replacements.
Hmm.
It got to the point that last year, in before March 1st, that's when the last commissioner was going to be gone. February 28th was the last day. 1 week before, they decided to pass a law saying that quorum for the most essential functions of the IFT was going to be for 4 commissioners, not 5. Why? Because otherwise you will have a constitutional crisis in Mexico because the regulators constitutional mandate. In
Right.
Costa Rica, you have yesterday they would say, well, this lady Cynthia is going to be the new president of the regulator. And I was talking to someone say, well, women power, blah blah blah. We are the best. We can prove it. It's like, and I was like, you know that she's the only commissioner because that is there. So she was the only one that was going to get the regulator. And since she doesn't have quorum because there are no other commissioners, she won't be able to do anything. She will be blamed for everything as always, but she cannot do anything because the once again the executive is not naming the people that will be able to be a commissioner. Colombia is also missing 1 commissioner. There's in Puerto Rico, the regulator has been without president for over almost 3 years now.
So
So having people with
it looks,
experience
yeah, it
in
looks like the regulators are are not enabling the technology, right? I mean,
because the regulator is not only the regulator, you need to have is the whole ecosystem. And then if they say in everybody talks about the benefit of technology, but the reality in the region is that very few governments, for example, Dominican Republic, when the new administration comes in, be it center, be it left, be it right, they are like telecommunication and technology is one of the last agencies that they name someone in charge of that agency. It's always one of the last one. It's one of the that have the lowest budget. It's one that no one wants to go into it. So it's funny because it's one of the few agency that crosses all the other ones. And if by using technologies that you can be more efficient, especially with 5G when the exporting sector of the country doesn't depend of the national conditions to depend more uh, on the conditions of what their direct competitors are doing overseas in terms of what is the type of technology that they need to adopt. So if you're in a place that doesn't want to put you with connect you with fiber and 5G, and your client say, well, I need these devices that can operate, and I need you to calibrate these health devices with 5G. And nationally there's a huge opposition to 5G. Well, all your competitors in China, Europe, and the US are used and calibrating into 5G. That company need to rapidly move overseas resources, personnel, investment to not lose those clients. And this happened in Costa Rica. This is a real case. So because with 5G, it's like the dynamics are changing. It's not now demand is like what happened not internally doesn't define your technology needs. It's like what happened is like with your direct competitors. You need to have this at least the same type of technology that your competitors have. So you don't, so you could don't lose ground. You maintain
So do you
yourself. It's like
right? And but do you think that then Latin America is falling behind from the world?
not really. It's like then Spain is falling behind from the rest of Europe.
Okay, okay. So
Or it's like
if,
because it's easy. It's like okay, you have 5G in the US. You
right,
have 5G in Korea. Tell
right,
me one service they are doing, they are providing now that you cannot provide with 4G.
yeah. Well,
Because there's high. Remember the control expectations. Remember that evolutionary phase to phase of 5G. We're
mm-hmm,
still in the first phase of 5G, and
mm-hmm,
in some urban area, we are going to phase two. The real benefit of 5G are not going to be until phase three is incorporates the satellite into the mobile system.
right.
Phase five is the 5G advanced. Is when you are going to see the really fast
Uh,
connection. That's
And
phase
that is
five,
coming, and that is coming when?
and eventually the thing we
Eventually 2040,
the
2030, when?
technology doesn't evolution doesn't happen in a silos. We are undergoing a global macroeconomics phase that is not very healthy. If people don't have much money, they are going to decide allocate that money to eat and not to buy a cell phone.
Yeah.
So
So if we if we if we make
we remember we haven't solved the microchip scarcity yet. It's getting better. It was supposed to be over last year. No, it
but it
wasn't.
wasn't.
So it's getting better. Prices are going down, but that scarcity, do you know how it translates in Latin America? Easily from 2022 to 2023, the average sell price of a smartphone increased $40.
Hmm.
The replacement rate of a handset increased 5 months. This is in a region where for mass adoption of new technology, the retail handset price should be anywhere between $50 to $75,
Yeah.
and it increased just $40.
Hmm.
If we look into the last 10 years in terms of economic growth in Latin America, and we compare, remember the last decade in the
Yeah.
80s, compare the economic growth of the last decade and compare the economic growth of these last 10 years, and there's not much difference.
Interesting.
We don't have the tequila effect, we don't have that, but we are not undergoing a very nice, like all that, like what happened 15, 20 years ago when you had the Chinese growth buying everything that was produced in Latin America. Those days are gone.
But and what about nearshoring? Yes, we don't have the kill effect, but we have the nearshoring effect thanks to COVID.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen from one day to the other.
Hmm. So
For
if you
example,
if you make
I'll give you
yeah,
an example in the US.
okay,
Uh, there were over $360 billion that were allocated by the President Biden to build different microchip manufacturing plants.
Right.
40 billion were allocated to for a company in Arizona, one company here decided in Texas $110 billion. They were supposed to start producing in summer 2023. They didn't. You know why?
No, why?
Because they didn't have enough engineers with the necessary expertise
Skills.
to launch operations, so it was delayed anywhere from 12 to 18 months. It's more complex. It's not, I'll just put the money and they come by. And of course, that has a lot of repercussion. It's not only putting the manufacturing plant, building everything, and they build the manufacturing plant, they build all the houses, apartments. It's getting the right people to be there, getting the logistic as well to get all those items that you need, all the minerals that you need to do all that, and also having in place how you are going to be disposing of these highly toxic materials.
Right.
So it was supposed to start in 2023. We don't have the engineers. We are looking into 2025.
So
So
that's
and that
that's a window of opportunity of things that probably can be provided. It's a window of opportunity for potential migration that it can happen. It's a window of opportunity for new type of businesses. But I would like to ask you about
potential migration with the conservative phase that we are going in Europe and the US.
no, well, yeah. But let me ask you now about based on this outlook that we got from the situation that happened with COVID and all these stoppings and all these things that are not happening, right? Who were the winners in Latin America and who were the losers? What countries were the winners and what countries were the losers?
Winners and losers of about what?
Well,
What?
on what happened to Latin America
During
for the
COVID.
telecommunications. Yeah, after COVID, not during
If it's
COVID, after COVID, we're 2 years, we're
if it's
four
only
years
COVID,
after COVID already. 2024 is 4 years after COVID. Who cash out? Who cash in? What do you think?
4 years after COVID. No, it's 3 years after COVID in Latin America. Really, it's like
Well, okay, 3 years after COVID, who are the winners and who are the losers in telecommunications and the possibility with near sharing on 5G on who is better positioned to take on the winnings and who is truly maybe underperforming
yeah.
because
The thing is, like one company that is doing very well in one country is not doing so well in another countries, and you could see
okay,
that. You see companies at Panama enter COVID with 4 mobile operators and ended COVID with 2.
interesting.
And then there's another and then in Chile you have one of the regional major players wasn't doing so well in Chile, so you had to merge with another player that is leading in some other, for example, a leader in the Caribbean. So that you are doing very well in one country, for example, the leader in Brazil is struggling in Mexico. So is uh, we will have to go on a country per country basis. What you do have here is, and the good news is, like due to COVID, many people in government started understanding the role of technology because it was through technology, and I'm not talking about fancy AI smartphones. It was through WhatsApp and text messages that some rural teachers were providing their lessons. That was the mini market that you have in the corner of your neighborhood was sending to you, okay, these are the products I have this week, and these are the prices. Put your orders, and I will deliver them. And you had these deliveries, the guy with the bicycle delivering this in rural town. That's rudimentary e-commerce.
Right.
So, and then one of the big consequences of COVID was um, remote digital banking and the adoption of payment applications.
Mm-hmm.
That has such a great boost during COVID. It's an amazing boost because many people say, I don't trust it. This is a region when people, when prepaid start um, with machine that will give you just a PIN number for prepaid instead of your physical card. People refuse to get the PIN number and they just always wanted the physical card to top up their prepaid service.
Right.
Now they have is like okay, either you use that payment application or you're going to starve. Either you start using direct deposits from your bank or you won't get paid because the bank is closed. So
Right.
that's those are some of the benefits. The Inter-American Development Bank and the World Bank estimated that 1 month um, under COVID for many people representing 1 year of knowledge and learning on the potential of digital technologies.
So
The
if we
problem is
if
that
I fast forward you, if I fast well, tell me the problem. The problem is what?
many of the decision makers that were in government under COVID are going away.
Okay, so let's gonna fast forward. This is, I understand the perspective that there's not necessarily one loser or one winner. It depends on the company. We'll need to go country by country. But let's gonna then fast forward to 2030, right? In the next 5 years, I would love you to think about what are those gaps that the technology hasn't filled in yet that could be a potential opportunity for those that are watching us today that can develop for the next 5 years. Is 2030, what is the market looking like? What are the companies today or potential startups that are watching us today that they should focus on for the next 5 years to come?
The applications. That's a centered application that you could use um, for a multitude of different industry. Those are going to be the winners. Anything related to energy conservation and energy production, because even though 5G is 90% more efficient than 4G, the exponential number, the increase in sites, also signals a heavy increase in energy use. Just in the U.S., you have a consultancy stating that even though it's 90% more efficient, by 2026 we are going to have an increasing 170% energy consumption just to 5G networks. Now think about 5G adoption in developing countries that don't have that energy electric grid that is performing as it should. Like we are in a region that have blackout almost on a daily basis. So if we're looking into investment and technology-based investment, we are looking into that digital transformation. This is the cliche word, phrase that everybody uses. If we are looking into using technology for e-health, uh, uh, education, and logistics, security, we also need to start thinking about all that civil infrastructure that you also need to ensure that that telecommunication network actually works. And then extremely important, and I mentioned it that I mentioned it last doesn't mean that it's not uh, as important or more important than everything else I had mentioned. Is like you need to act to transform the way that we are teaching and educating our children, our adults. We are in a world that is moving increasingly to the adoption and use of technology. So we need to reflect that in a school system, education system. And I'm not talking only about elementary, mid school, high school. I'm talking about university. In Spain, one of the things I like about the Open University of Catalonia is you have a digital literature master degree.
Mhm.
In psychology, you have or computer behavior psychology academic journals. We need to integrate that in Latin America. We have very few universities in Latin America that are approaching this telecom space, and only mainly from two faculties, engineering or law. And in law, there's only IT law or telecom law. We need to start integrating all this use of digital technologies in economics, in literature, social science, humanities, etc.
Do you
That
think that
way,
the telecom engineer will continue to be a career by 2040? You know,
yes,
yeah.
it will evolve.
How?
Well, the same thing is like the administrative assistant that 40 years ago were called secretaries. They're still working. It's more professional. They're doing stuff that were not supposed to do. Now they are not only getting messages and writing them down. They're using Excel. They're using Word. They're using their position have evolved.
Right.
The same will happen. The position will evolve.
So I'm going to invite you right now to do this exercise with me. Let's going to do this gymnastic that I love to do with our brain power. Let's going to think that we are already in 2050. And I would like you to think how does our telecom world will look like. If you were today, a big VC or a big telecom company, where will you put your money in Latin America for 2050? Where is going to be the more profitable markets to invest in Latin America? What do you think? And this is 2050. I'm not saying even 2040, 2050 already.
2050 in Latin America, in a
Yeah.
region that every 10 years, every single country goes through a disaster. It's very hard to do. I will say that whatever country it is, it's going to be in the urban areas. That's where you have the best technology infrastructure, the most educated people in the region. Also, where are the best universities in the region? Best universities in the region are in Southeast Brazil. They're in Santiago, Chile. They are in the Triangle in Mexico, in Bogota,
Mm-hmm.
Medellin, and then in Uruguay. Those are the best universities. Then you have a few in Costa Rica, a few in Peru, and the
So the
rest of
ones
the
that you didn't
region.
mention either, they need to improve their education systems to order to become more competitive.
They
Let's
need
gonna think
is funding, investment in
funding.
education.
I love
It's
it.
not that it's like funding. You need to do research. A
Right.
university is not just a place where you go take a class and then you go back and your professors is brilliant. The university is the tool that you provide that professor so he can do research and to improve the condition, regardless of what is what are happening around. And why it's important because the professor that is specialized has his PhD and postdoctorate in social in political science that is in the University of Costa Rica is going to do research related to Costa Rica most likely. The
Right.
guy that is working in humanities is going to be worrying about Costa Rica. The universities are always attend to their local needs. Even though they are providing you a
Although
global
I
perspective, they do teach you local needs. If you go to any university, then you will learn about the local area. And I have been fortunate to have studied in different universities, and I can tell you you could be taking any course and you could be learning about Africa, Oceania, any country, but there's always going to be a local component to
do
tie
you think
you.
that there's any job, you already told me how do you think the telecom engineer job is going to look like in 2040? But what jobs are going to cease to exist by 2050? What jobs we're not going to have in our industry in telecom?
It's like the same job that the jobs that are very repetitive and don't require any type of um, additional input are going to be the one that are going to be disappearing. But on the same token, there's a lot of new jobs that are going to be popping up in the next few decades. Like there's jobs that you see all around or around that 10 years ago didn't exist. So
So
the only
network
pro
operator network operator centers, like NOC
the
engineers gone by
no, but the
2050.
thing is, engineer. There's different phases because engineer is you need engineer for many AI system unless you get to the singularity point that after that, who knows? I mean, we get Terminator and we're all dead. But beside that singularity point, before we get there, how are you? The engineer need to take into consideration when they are doing the plans and the buildings, what is all around. There might be some cultural aspects that you need to take into consideration when you are deploying and making that network that might not be as efficient, but do comply with the needs of the local population that a machine cannot provide to you. That's why I say automated actions that I will say accountants should fear more AI systems than an engineer.
Right.
And you have company, telecom company, looking to the U.S. press, and you're going to see a company say, "I'm going to eliminate all these jobs." However, if you look into the research that it goes into that replacement rate of a job, the problem is not in Europe, the problem is not Japan or the U.S., Canada, Australia, because new jobs are going to be created. The European Union have been exploring for over 15 years how can I make use all these free courses to train people and give them an official certificate or degree so they start working on technology because believe it or not we have uh, uh, a demand an unmet demand of millions and millions of people that are training certificate in terms of technology
Yeah.
job. You don't need a 4 year degree. It's like we need
So
people that can repair that. We need millions of them. It's like an all around. You have countries that if they want a telecom network, they need to bring people from overseas to put it down. So the
Jose, have
pro
we
the
have
pro
we the
no no
it
let me finish. The
okay.
problem is in emerging markets.
Mm.
Why? Because emerging markets have more out routine works that don't require any additional
Those
thinking.
repetitive jobs that you were talking about,
Yeah,
yes.
they have an increasing number. Manufacturing jobs are
Call
easy to
centers.
replace. Are easy to replace. Uh, but jobs that require thinking, that require other aspects, are not so that easy. They are going to evolve. These jobs like textiles,
Mm.
you are going to replace them. And the problem is that since the government don't have that much resources, retraining those workers is going to be a huge problem in the coming years.
Have we invented everything in telecom?
Of course not.
When is going to be the next breakthrough? Breakthrough. When? When do you think it
Probably
happens?
by 2028, 2029, you have 6G.
Okay. So do you think today
6G
that
is going to be 5G plus embedded AI, completely AI use with quantum computers, and that quantum computer is going to be for security. It's already being talked to all around.
totally,
The
but then
research on 6G started back in 2016.
so then do you think that this is, I mean, it's going to be implemented in the business to business layer? What about the business to consumer? Because today the problem is that you say, okay, the handset are still in 3G. We're talking about 6G next
Is
year, quantum
remember,
computing.
it's like when 6G comes, when you first 6G phones networks come out, it is when you are going to see that 40-50% of the population getting to 5G. Then you need to wait 10 more years for that 6G to be there. So in any technology, to get to that 40-50%, it has taken 8 years since the first launch. And that's without pandemic, that's without any other problem. That's just the way the economics of having the cost of the handsets go down. So we are entering the fifth year, and really for Latin America, 2023 could be is actually the kind of first year that you have those 5G network expanding. This year, you are going to see the three players in Colombia launching 5G. The three players in Argentina are really launching 5G, and we still to see what happened in many other countries. So it's if it doesn't feel like it, but when you crunch the numbers, 5G is being adopted much faster than LTE and 4G. And with 4G, we had the same complaint. Is taking too long, and it was adopted faster than 3G, and it will
Yeah,
happen with 6G as well.
I guess that the question will continue to be remaining. This is fast enough. So, Jose, just wrapping up because our time is kind of like totally disappeared. But I would love you if you can give to the next generation of professionals in telecom, particularly those that are in these emerging markets, your guidance on how to navigate and contribute to this rapidly evolving landscape. What would you suggest to them to do?
Don't be afraid of technology. Start learning about technology. It doesn't matter if you're studying philosophy, you're studying literature, social science. Uh, it's another tool that you have to learn. And the more familiar you are with it, the better off you are going to be because it will make your life easier. Yeah, so
Awesome.
don't be afraid and embrace it.
Well, Jose's perspective on the future trends, challenges, and the potential for innovation in telecom have been enlightening. Thank you. Thank you. Your advice to these emerging professionals in the field of are not just inspiring, but are a beacon guiding to the way towards what we can do to have a more connected and more innovative future. Thank you, Jose. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for providing us with this foresight on what will happen in the telecom industry the next 5, 20, 25 years. Truly, truly, thank you for coming.
No, thank you for the invitation. Yeah.
Thank you to you, to our audience, to the executives and leaders of today that will be leading the future of tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for this journey of exploration and foresight. Your engagement and curiosity are what are driving us today to bring you these insightful conversations to you. Remember, the Foresight podcast is your window into the future of technology and telecom. Join us next time as we continue to take a deep dive into the minds of industry leaders and visionaries and unraveling the trends and ideas that are shaping our world. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us. We value your feedback and look forward to having you with us in our upcoming episodes. Until then, keep looking forward and keep innovating. Stay tuned. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.